Hi, my name is Ray Akers. Came into this world on 24th of December 1937.
So tell me, if we were going to wind the clock back, how was it that you ended up in Papua New Guinea and served there?
Being the ability to say yes to God when all the indications of sanity said no. Our childhood upbringing,
Yeah.
where we decided the best thing we could do would be to serve God with our lives, not knowing how or when or where. Most outstanding feature of that would be people who have influenced our lives. The first one would be Wapasale, who was instrumental in getting me to go to the mission field for the first phase of building work, which was just bush materials. He just out of the side of his mouth said, "And what's to stop you from going, Ray?" And being an honest sort of bloke, I said, "Well, there's really nothing." And I was on the mission field inside a few weeks. Made a few sacrifices along the way. Took all our savings because nobody paid your way in those days. I went on my own for 3 months, using up all my money that we'd kept for getting married and things like that. Staying on the understanding, God, if you can trust me with the task, I'll do my best to fulfill that task for you. We were invited to think about expanding the work, and instead of reaching inward, we chose to reach outward. And we came across a group of people who through various ways touched our heartstrings and realised that God was calling us to do something with them. Planned a bit and put together a team of those promising young students from the national and indigenous groups who set out with no more than a backpack and a Bible. Most significant thing about that was that there were all these young guys who were volunteers, and they looked to me for leadership, which was a scary thought. We planned, we prayed, we were prepared the best that we possibly could. A group of about 6 or 7 of us started out on this trek to take the gospel to the Wapasale people. It was a 2 to 3 day trek through some of the most rugged country I've ever been in, climbing limestone peaks and going down the other side only to climb another one, crossing fast-flowing rivers and managing to find a way through. We got to one point in the journey where the Nationals in the main were ready to throw in the towel, and so was their fearless leader, and the waters had risen in heavy rain. We didn't know the countryside. I remember being so exhausted at one stage I said to Yawaja, I said to him, "Just let me stay here and die, you guys go on, I've had enough." We didn't realise that that was just the beginning of the adventure that God had planned for us. We were enabled to get to this one point in the Erave river system where the mountains on either side were very steep and the river was running through them, and it had flooded several times in the past, but they were always just flash flood and it was gone. We came to this place where you were to cross the river, and they didn't have bridges, they just had poles stuck in the rocks and cane vines wrapped around them to give you a bit of a foothold. We looked at this and said to each other, "There's no way known that we can get through this." Several of the guys were saying, "Let's just turn it around, pack it up, go home." But there was a faith element there that said this is of God, and if God is in it, who can be against us? Yahweh just said, God made a way for Moses, he can make a way for us. With that he picked up a bit of driftwood and threw it into the water, and we went back to have something to eat and talk about what we could do about getting back, because of the flooded river there was no way we could go forward. And one of the guys said, "Listen." We all listened and suddenly realised what he meant was, there's nothing to hear. Situation of what do we do? And Yahweh just said, let's do it quick. So we ran quickly back to where the river gorge was and climbed down the gorge and up the other side, probably a couple of 100 feet. And as we did, we hadn't gone more than 10 minutes out of the gorge when the water returned with a vengeance and took everything out, bridges, the whole works. Day and a half, I think it was, before we finally came up to the people of Wapasale and we had the privilege of preaching the gospel to them for the very first time. God works wonders when you obey Him and do things His way.
Soon after this, Yawija and his family moved to this region to become the first indigenous missionary from PNG to a different language and tribal group. Ray and Gwen Akers continued to serve in PNG, then as pastors in Australia, then further missionary service in Indonesia and the Solomon Islands.